I think it goes without saying, everybody would agree with this, at least every American, and probably many people around the world, that 9/11 was certainly a defining moment in our history. Probably one of the most horrific terrorist attacks, on U.S. soil ever. Now, for me, my exposure, I've seen, plenty of video footage of what happened that day. I was very young when 9/11 happened. I think I was probably about 4 years old. And my parents, they told me this after many years, after it happened, they had actually kept the footage from me in terms of at that age. And they explained it as just the shock of what was happening. So I wasn't exposed to it a while, but of course I remember hearing about 9/11 all the time in the formative years of my life. But I saw plenty of video clips after from the tragedy of it happened. And yeah, it was a very shocking day for America. I will say, it's September 9th as I'm making this. Apple TV is releasing this exclusive. They're not the only ones, though. There's a lot of streaming services that are putting out commemorative, and that's fine. I'm not saying they shouldn't. Commemorative projects, though, on 9/11. Which, for me, again, it would be, I would love the opportunity to learn, and this project seems to be giving me an account of that, because it's very much a documentary of what happened, from this one perspective. But there's a lot of other streaming services that are putting out 9/11 specific content for what happened. So, I don't know. Again, it's a balancing act, because I don't tend to subscribe to multiple streaming services at the same time, budget-wise. Paramount, I think, is putting out one. I think PBS might be too. I wouldn't be surprised some of the other markets happen to be as well. But I would like to learn more personally, and documentaries give me the ability to do that. And I really appreciate, that opportunity. And I love learning about history as well, even if the historical events that happened are, tragically remembered, because the cost was very great. Let's go ahead and take a look at 9/11 inside the president's war room. This is what it says according to IMDb. 9/11 from the president's perspective, with exclusive access to information from the ones that had to take decisions during the World Trade Center's attack. That's going to be very interesting. So the president of focus, obviously, at the time, it was President George W. Bush. So this project's going to feature him. This will be very interesting. Again, I think we're actually still, didn't I read a headline the other day? I really tried, 2021 to just avoid the news at this point. I'm not, 2020, 2021, I think we all became addicted. And for me, I'm just kind of like, well, I don't try to pay attention as much anymore. Even though, again, history, I absolutely do. But there was a headline very recently, like some of the 9/11 documents were either going to be declassified or they were. I don't know. I've heard that around for a couple years. So, yeah, it's a day that absolutely deserves to be held in reverence. We lost so many good people that day, and just the visual of watching what happened, it's tragic. Let's go ahead and take a look at 9/11 inside the president's war room. Again, obviously, I haven't looked at the other projects as well to compare where everything else is in regard to some of the other streaming services. I haven't looked yet. But, it's going to be a lot of, again, like I said, which project I'll watch first, we'll see. But I'd probably like to watch one of those projects during the day, or 9/11, which is in 2 days from now. We're going to go ahead and watch this first, and we're going to talk about it more in my condensed review segment while watching the video together. Okay, without further ado, let's take a look. Here we go. This will be interesting for me. Again, like I said, I was really young when this happened, and I don't remember it as a kid. I just had to see it after the fact.
Not humid. Skies were clearer.
Smoke is billowing out of the building.
ABC Network News. A plane apparently has crashed into the World Trade Center in New York.
Devastating
we went from
image.
a calm, beautiful day to one in which our world changed dramatically.
September 11th, 2001 was the worst terrorist attack in U.S. history. Now experience the first 12 hours surrounding the events in a way the world has never seen.
Andy Card comes up behind me and says, America's under attack.
Yeah,
and
I remember that. I remember hearing that story.
We needed to move the president and get him out of there. He could be a sitting duck.
There was a call that said Angel's next. Angel was the code word for Air Force One.
We worried someone in the president's circle could try to take down Air Force One.
Every plane had become a missile.
One of the targets might well be the White House.
Mother got on the phone. She said, we're outside Milwaukee.
Scary.
Said, you gotta be kidding me. What are you doing there?
Especially in that type of
She
situation.
said, you grounded our plane.
In their own
Something unexpected like that
She
happens.
told me her plane had been hijacked and the line went dead.
Unprecedented.
That really hit home.
Those at the heart of power on that unforgettable day.
We did everything we knew to do. But 3,000 people died on your watch. It just gnaws at you.
Come together to reveal what happened behind closed doors.
She took the badge from her son's dead body, gave it to the president, and said, I want you to always remember.
I remember the Secret Service screaming, "Take off your heels and run."
We've never had a crisis quite like this.
Of course, we all were hurting. We all were terrified.
Very dramatic
The first plane
music
was an
choice as
accident.
well, which
The
certainly
second one
blends
was
with
an
the
attack.
particular
And the third one was a declaration
nature of
of
this
war.
documentary. Jeff Daniels, I know that name. They're very moving. Like I said, I told you, my side of the story when I was really young. I was just a kid when that happened, and my parents were obviously surrounded by that, but they, at the time, again, they were saying it was just so unexpected, and it was shocking that they had. I was so young in that time, and they tried to. They visually shielded me from that. Now, if they should have, they shouldn't have. That's I guess that's a concern for another day. I mean, I can certainly think from whatever perspective, but now seeing it as an adult, and really seeing it in the years since after I started looking at some of what happened, it was very. It's that imagery does not shake you, and the fact that the costs were so great as well, and how many lives that you lost that day. That is very sad, and to hear again like the story of just everybody in the government being like, we didn't know what was happening. I knew that story going in there because my parents had told me about that. And I read that in some of the history books about former President George W. Bush being like a kid's school just reading or something, or maybe just talking to the class, and suddenly in a split second, world changes, pretty much, and then you don't. I mean, I'm sure again, like I said, they were trying to go about it the way they could, but in those particular situations, it's like anything I expect in life. Although again, this is like a drastic escalation from just anything mundane. When you're in a position where you've just dealt with something that you don't know necessarily, it lacks historical experience, and it's an unprecedented situation. It takes forethought. And it seems, again, this project is very well competently made. I'll give it that. I would say it's very faithful to a documentary format and just the found footage, real person interviews from people that were active in that time. Just the government officials who were trying to wrestle with what was going on. It looks very moving. I will definitely watch this. Like I said, there's a lot of other streamers that have been producing the content. So it feels like, again, this is, especially nowadays, this is a very particular, right now, because it's, September, we're having this conversation a lot. And you have a lot of streaming services seeming to produce historical projects that teach history in that way of what happened, which is great. I think we definitely need to preserve history, especially for the younger generation, and help them see, like, this is what happened. This is what happened that day, and maybe you weren't alive in that time, or perhaps, like me, you were very young, and you don't have the memories of the specific moment when it happened. But it's a hard watch. I mean... But it's a moving one, a deep one, and it is a historical, real-world occurrence. What are your guys' thoughts with 9/11 inside the president's war room? I think it's going to be a very interesting angle, again, to hear the angle from people who were in that situation, or from their perspective. Let me know down below what you guys think. Don't forget all that stuff. Like, subscribe, and sharing that bell. I would imagine, again, this is Apple TV. They make very high-quality content. This is going to be very respectful, and I would imagine very thorough as well. But... whatever your thoughts are said, let me know down below. And until we get to cover more in the future, never forget that day. Definitely, especially now. I mean, yeah, it's sad. I will see you guys whatever point we get to look at more content in the future. But until whatever point that happens to be, thanks for watching this video. I love you guys. Remember, love your fellow man. God bless and peace.